Hello everyone, welcome to my channel. Today we start a new series. We will cover in short and easy way the whole story of philosophy from its beginning in 6th century BC in the Greek civilization, passing through medieval when Christian philosophy dominated the scene, and then the modern philosophy from Renaissance 15th century to present. In this video, we are going to talk about the beginning of emergence of philosophy and the pre-Socratic philosophers. So without further ado, let's get straight to it. What is philosophy? It is a familiar word, even though it is pretty hard to define exactly what it means. But in the etymological origin of the word, it's made up of two parts. Philo, which means in Greek literally love or interest on something, and Sophia, which means wisdom. We can then conclude that the philosophy means love of wisdom. The philosophy originated in the colonies established by the Greeks in Asia Minor, especially in the city of Miletus. During their long migrations to the Asia Minor from 16th century BC and 12th century BC, they came into contact with peoples bordering the Mediterranean basin and were influenced by their different civilization and cultures, such as the ancient Egyptians and the Indians, as well as the Phoenicians and the Babylonians. So their popular imagination was full of stories divine glorifying the myths, which considers all natural phenomena such as the sun and the moon to be a god. And there was a great poet like Homer and Hesiod who immortalized those myths in their poetry before the appearance of philosophy. So the man who regarded as the father of philosophy was named Thales. He was the first philosopher in history who established the idea of a naturalistic approach to the world rather than a supernaturalistic one. He comes from a town in Asia Minor called Miletus, and he put forth the idea that there is one fundamental stuff which makes up the entire universe, which called the monism. Thales told that the world stuff was water. However, the Thales people, Alexanders, who might have been the first in Greek memory to draw a map of world, was a different view about the world stuff. He said that he is not water or any other elements, and he supposed that the apron is the arche. So what is the apron? It means that the source of origin of things that exist must be something different, something undefined and unlimited. But Anaximenes, who regarded as a younger colleague of Anaximanders, thought that the air was the basic essential. On the other side, it was another school, which is the school of Pythagoreans, founded by Pythagoras, flourished about 530 years BC in Cotton. The most important ideas of this school can be divided into categories. First, the religion philosophy, for instance, the idea of the reincarnation of the soul, which means the soul or the psyche moves from one place to another, or occupies or takes up different bodies. Second is mathematical philosophy. Pythagoras thinks that the world stuff is deeply mathematical, which means the elements of number are the even and the odd. The even is the unlimited, and the odd is the limit. The two together, limit and the unlimited, somehow go to make up the whole cosmos. In fact, there is a saying of some of the later Pythagoreans that the human psyche is a self-moving or self-changing number. A number kind of keeps on going. We can also find that in the same average of time, 600 to 400 BC, in the city of Ephesus, the more famous city in Ionia, that Heraclitus, who had the nickname the Dark, because of his obscure opinions, he said, I could not find anything that was everywhere. It could not work because there are things which are not work, and for the same reason, it could not be Earth, and it could not be Earth. There is, he said, only one that can find everywhere, and that is the process of change itself. Everything is changing, and his famous sentence illustrating is, you can't step into the same river twice, for fresh waters are always flowing in. And therefore he said the world stuff is fire, but not as a material substance, but rather an activity. 20 years later flourished Parmenides and his Zenos disciple. They come in from the town of Ilia. Parmenides, who is profoundly opposed to Heraclitus' views, he thought that the universe is a planet, completely full and eternal, and therefore there is no change at all. His follower Zenos, who was also famous for devising a series of paradoxes, one of them says it's impossible to cross a room. Why? So because to cross a room, you first have to cross half of it, but to cross half of it, you have to first cross a quarter of that, and so forth and so on. But how can possibly cross an infinity of distances, no matter how tiny they are? He responds, so because to cross any distance takes some time, no matter how little, and crossing an infinity number of distances would take an infinity amount of time, but you die in 40 or 50 or 60 years, and therefore you obviously could not cross a room or any distance for that matter. And therefore motion is an illusion. Now let's turn to the pluralists. They were a group of philosophers who said, what if we abandon monism? They said that there are many different steps which make up the world. The first advocate of this approach was a man who called Empedocles from Italy, especially in the city of Sicily. He said that there were four basic kinds of steps: earth, air, water, and fire. And these four steps controlled by two constant forces, love and strife. His successor Anaxagoras, who disagreed him, said that there was to be way more than four steps. There has to be an indefinite number of steps, as many different steps as there are types of things. Little tiny bits of all of these steps are actually in everything. Little seeds, as he put it. At this point, the atomist entered the scene, which Democritus is the last one of natural philosophers or pre-Socratic philosophers. He was the first person who thought about matter as composed of very tiny, invisible and indivisible particles. His ultimate tiniest portion of matter, Democritus called it the atom. Democritus imagined atoms as hand objects of a definite shape that moved spontaneously and could link with each other by a kind of mechanical connection. Of course, Democritus' views were strongly opposed by the later philosophers, as we will see later.